When you look at the situation of City right now, how likely is it that they can do this?
Very, very. Who are the favourites to the FA Cup? Man City.
Yeah.
Who are favourites to win the Premier League? Man City.
Mm-hmm.
Who are favourites to win the Champions League? Man City. So in all three of them competitions, they are the favourites. Now, you can put it all together and say, well, you know, is it feasible that they can win all? I think it's very hard to make an argument who's going to beat them. I think it's a harder question. So, right, well, OK, let's go the FA Cup final. They've made it, Brighton or Man United. I don't think Man United would beat them, even in a one-off game. I know strange things happen. I think Brighton would be slightly more likely because they're such a good counter-attacking team and also offer lots of pressure in forward areas with their pace. I think the two centre-halves of Man United being injured has played a big part. I think it gives a huge advantage for City to win the FA Cup. The league, you know, I think the bookmakers are 3 to 4 on. Really? For them, you know, they're firm favourites for their Premier League now, having Arsenal to play.
But being favourites is one thing, and that's just on a bit of paper, essentially.
Yeah,
You've still got to go out and do it. And we have seen in the past that City have been favourites at games and hasn't gone to plan. You know, let's think back to that FA Cup final involving Wigan, for example.
Yeah.
City would have been the favourites. That didn't go to plan. The Champions League final as well. There have been times where we know that maybe Pep Guardiola has outdone himself in the sense of completely changing things for a one-off game that we've always gone, why has he done that?
I wouldn't make that case this year because of one obvious reason, Erling Haaland. Mm-hmm. He's a standout feature. What is the difference between Man City? Yeah. You know, the debate early on in the year that we had, and I totally didn't go with it, that, you know, City can play as well, if not better, without him in the team. That's been put to bed quite comfortably. I think he offers such a different thing to them as a team. And I look at Real Madrid, who are their next opponents in the Champions League, and I'm not sure they can handle him at all. Physicality of what he's about. He loves to run behind. Real Madrid like to play a high line. I think they'll pay the price that other teams should have done to Real Madrid last year. This isn't the same Man City team. They have a different dynamic, and it's mainly one player. That doesn't mean they've got brilliance in other positions. They have. But I do think one player makes them far more effective. And I think he'll be very consistent in that team lineup when he gets to the major games that are coming. I think you'll see Grealish on the left. I think you'll see Haaland down the middle, and it'll be Bernardo Silva will probably play alongside Kevin De Bruyne. You know, you're going to get a pretty consistent City team now.
So what has gone, I say gone wrong because it hasn't gone wrong at all, has it, really, when you look at the position they're in right now? But the start of the season, they stuttered a few times. There was just a couple of results where you were thinking, oh, what's happened to Manchester City? So what's changed from those kind of games, that period, let's say, to now?
They've grown. They've grown as a team. You know, City have always had great sides now, and they have changes in the team. I think you can easily add in Jack Grealish's improvement this season from his first season at City. It's chalk and cheese. He's a far better player now. I think Rodri, over the course of the season, has been exceptional. He's got better. Literally, month by month, he's improved City. I mean, he's played an awful lot of games for them, and his role in that team has just become more important. You know, you don't even think about Fernandinho anymore because Rodri stepped in and been absolutely brilliant. I can't even go, do you know what? Ederson saved them this year because he hasn't had to. You know, there's hardly games where you think Ederson's had to produce brilliant moments and saves for them to get results. That hasn't been the case. As the seasons wore on, they've become stronger and more accomplished everywhere all over the pitch.
And I sort of was saying there about the season didn't start as we'd have expected it to. It wasn't a terrible start, let's just point that out. But there were just a couple of draws maybe, and that defeat to Liverpool. Didn't they have always a couple of games in hand, Nat, as well? There's periods of the season, although they were adrift a little bit, they always seem to have 2 games in hand, didn't they? Yeah, it did feel like that. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the situation they find themselves in right now as well. But looking at what they have left, and I'm talking about before the FA Cup final and then potentially the Champions League final as well. I said it before, their schedule is quite relentless.
Yeah.
They obviously have Arsenal on Wednesday live on talkSPORT, and then after that you've got a period of a game pretty much every 3 days, bar a period between the 9th of May and the 14th of May where they've got 5 days in between. The rest of it is either 3 or 4 days. Could that be their undoing, the fact that the schedule is pretty tight for them, or have they got enough to deal with all of that?
Well, if you think of the comparison, obviously Manchester United in 99 won the treble. Now, Sir Alex always had 4 forwards. You know, he had the choice between York, Sheringham, Cole and Solskjaer. Mm-hmm. He had 4, so he could utilise all of them. And they did. I know that Teddy played an FA Cup final and maybe didn't play the League Cup final, didn't start the Champions League final. And you could go all through their fixtures at that time that there were changes, certainly in the forward line area. And Fergie had a very strong squad. Now, this squad is incredibly... got great depth, Man City squad. You can nearly pick a player on every position twice. He's playing now effectively 4 centre-halves as his back line. I know Stones is playing a slightly different role, but, Nathan Aké's really more of a centre-half. John Stones was, Akanji, and then you go Diaz. They're essentially 4 centre-halves. And they don't seem to concede goals from corners too often. There isn't an area of the game that I think, do you know what, they ain't as good as other teams. They're basically as strong as anybody in the Premier League, nearly in every department.
Mark has texted in with this point. He says City winning the treble would be a bigger achievement than United in 1999, because in 99 United didn't win their group. They scraped through as a second place qualifier, and there wasn't even a round of 16. They went straight to the quarter-final. Do you agree?
One thing I would say, and the United fans are not going to like me for saying this, or this comment, but everything went for them in the final against Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich had so many chances, didn't take them. And look, one of Man United's strengths was they had incredible characters within their dressing room. And even in adversity, they could still turn a game around, which they did. But that Bayern Munich game was, it was there for Bayern. I remember Yanker who went through and they hit the bar when the goal at his mercy, and it was an incredible night and one of the most spectacular games I've seen. But everything went for United in the final. But fair play, they got there, and they were an exceptional side. I think Fergie, you could make a point and probably say Fergie's had other United teams equally as good and didn't get the treble. So you have to have an element of, look at Liverpool's 3-3 draw against AC Milan. There was some amazing things that happen in these games, in one-off games, that you can go, you have to have sometimes that slice of luck that gets you over the line.
Yeah. And Pep Guardiola, as we know, has been tempering expectations. That's just natural of any manager. Obviously, he'll be looking away from the cameras and away from the media. He'll be looking at the fixtures. He'll be looking at what is attainable. And he'll be wanting every single bit of success there is. But naturally, as I say, in front of all of us, he's going to be saying, no, let's just calm it down a little bit. One game at a time, as we always hear. Interestingly, he didn't react like that to the Arsenal game coming up, did he? Where he was talking about the atmosphere at the Etihad, where he really thinks it's important to put as much pressure on Arsenal. Turn up, be vocal, be loud. He's doing that because he wants... He probably remembered the atmosphere at the Emirates and the way the Arsenal fans were before that game. And City will handle that. But he'll want the City fans to be up for this game as much as any game this season, because he probably thinks if we beat them, we are definitely going to win the title. And if they beat us, now we're on catch-up again. So I think that's firmly fixed in his mind. Can they do it? Of course they can do it. Of course they can do it now. Are you more convinced this season than any other season for City, especially with the Champions League? I think Erling Haaland's the massive difference. And then, like I said, there's other players who have played their part, certainly Rodri and others. But I think Erling Haaland, as long as he stays fit, even in quiet games like he did against Sheffield United yesterday, he's always going to get goals. You're talking of a player of the highest level who just, even if he misses them and he gets the next one, you think he's going to put it away. He's just that type of player.